This is going to feel like an unfair advantage because it explains something most men spend years trying to figure out without ever naming it. A lot of men think women care most about looks. Others think it's money. Others think it's status, confidence, game, lines, or some secret trick you unlock after watching enough videos. And because those ideas are popular, men chase them like religion. They change their body, they chase bigger paychecks, they build a persona, they memorize scripts, they force themselves into environments they hate, hoping one day it finally clicks. But if looks alone solved it, handsome men would never get friend-zoned. If money alone solved it, rich men would never get disrespected at home. If confidence alone solved it, every man who can speak loudly would be winning. The truth is simpler, and that's why it's painful. Women don't fall for your face. Women don't fall for your bank account. Women fall for what happens to your inner temperature when you stand in front of them. That is the real currency, your emotional baseline. Call it steadiness. Call it gravity. Call it the feeling that you are not trying to take anything from her, not trying to prove anything to her, not trying to negotiate your worth in front of her. A man can be tall, short, broke, wealthy, fit, average, dressed well, dressed plain. None of it matters if the moment he faces a woman, his nervous system starts begging for approval. And women can feel that begging even when you think you're hiding it. Most men misunderstand this because they confuse attraction with performance. They believe attraction is something you demonstrate, something you prove, something you earn through effort. So they enter interactions already working, already pushing, already trying to justify why they deserve attention. That effort is felt immediately. When a man's baseline is unstable, everything he does carries weight. His words feel heavier than they should. His jokes feel like bids for approval. His pauses feel anxious. Even his compliments feel like transactions. None of this is intentional, but intention doesn't matter. What matters is how it lands. Women are extremely sensitive to emotional pressure, not because they are analytical, but because they are adaptive. Over time, they learn to detect when an interaction carries expectation. Expectation creates obligation. Obligation creates discomfort, and discomfort shuts attraction down. This is why two men can say the same sentence and get completely different reactions. One sounds relaxed, unbothered, grounded. The other sounds like he is hoping for a reward. The words are identical. The baseline is not. Men often ask why they feel more successful when they don't care. The answer isn't that indifference is attractive. It's that lack of emotional investment stabilizes the nervous system. When the stakes feel low, the body stays calm. When the body stays calm, behavior becomes natural. When behavior is natural, attraction has room to grow. The mistake is trying to simulate that state instead of earning it. Pretending not to care while internally spiking creates contradiction. Women sense that mismatch immediately. The calm has to be real. Otherwise, it leaks. This is where experience matters, and not in the way most men think. Experience is not about numbers, status, or stories. Experience is about exposure. Repeated, normal, uneventful exposure that teaches the nervous system there is no threat. When a man lacks exposure, his mind inflates the meaning of each interaction. Every woman becomes symbolic. Every conversation becomes a referendum on his worth. Every rejection becomes evidence of failure. Under those conditions, calm is impossible. That's why advice that skips exposure and jumps straight to confidence fails. Confidence is not a decision. It's a byproduct of familiarity. Men who are around women regularly, socially, casually, without agenda, don't experience the same spikes. Their body does not treat attraction as a crisis. Beauty doesn't shock them. Interest doesn't destabilize them. Rejection doesn't collapse them. Their baseline stays steady because nothing feels rare. Scarcity is what creates emotional hunger. When women feel scarce, men lean forward. When men lean forward, women lean back. This dynamic repeats everywhere because it is not cultural, it is biological. That's why men who pedestalize women struggle the most. Pedestals force upward gaze. Upward gaze creates imbalance. Imbalance kills attraction. A woman does not want to be above you emotionally. That position comes with pressure, not pleasure. This also explains why some men suddenly get it after a period of social growth. Nothing mystical changes. Their nervous system recalibrates. Conversations stop feeling loaded. Silence stops feeling dangerous. Presence becomes heavier than words. At that point, attraction becomes less about effort and more about alignment. Another uncomfortable truth follows from this. An unstable baseline doesn't just affect attraction, it affects judgment. Men who spike emotionally tend to misread signals. They overinterpret kindness as interest. They chase inconsistency. They tolerate disrespect. They stay in dynamics that keep them anxious because anxiety feels like movement. Meanwhile, stable men are often invisible to chaos-driven women, and that's a good thing. When your baseline stabilizes, your standards rise automatically, not as a rule, but as a reflex. You stop bargaining with yourself. You stop rationalizing behavior that feels wrong. You stop mistaking emotional volatility for passion. Peace becomes attractive. Consistency becomes attractive. Women who thrive on drama lose leverage over you because your mood no longer depends on their validation. Women who value steadiness finally have space to engage without testing you. This is where many men experience a second confusion. They notice that as they become calmer, some women lose interest quickly. They assume something is wrong. Nothing is wrong. Those women were responding to your need, not to you. When need disappears, so does the dynamic that fed them. This is why attraction feels paradoxical. The moment you stop trying to extract something, women feel safer giving something. Not because you manipulated them, but because pressure is gone, and pressure is the enemy of desire. The most powerful shift a man can make is internal. Stop making attraction a high-stakes event. Stop turning every interaction into an audition. Stop treating interest as something fragile that must be protected. When a man can walk away emotionally intact, his presence changes. He listens differently. He speaks less. He reacts slower. He does not chase closure. He does not fear silence. Women notice this immediately, even if they can't explain it. They describe it as calm, grounded, different, or safe. What they are responding to is the absence of emotional hunger. This is also why attempts to optimize dating through tricks often backfire. Tricks require effort. Effort increases internal pressure. Pressure shows. The irony is that the less you try to impress, the more impressive you become. That doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing less internally. The work happens outside the interaction. Building a life that doesn't revolve around approval. Developing social comfort that doesn't depend on outcomes. Creating routines, purpose, and direction that anchor your identity. When a man has something to return to, he doesn't cling. And when he doesn't cling, attraction breathes. Another misconception needs to be addressed. Rejection. Rejection is not proof of inadequacy. It is feedback on state, timing, or mismatch. Men with unstable baselines interpret rejection as judgment. Men with stable baselines interpret it as information. That difference alone separates bitterness from growth. When rejection stops threatening your identity, it loses power. And paradoxically, women sense that too. A man who can be rejected without shrinking becomes more attractive over time, not less. This carries into relationships as well. When a man fears loss, he starts negotiating with his dignity. He over-explains. He apologizes prematurely. He tolerates things he shouldn't. He tries to secure reassurance instead of maintaining standards. When a man knows he can survive loss, his behavior stays clean. He doesn't threaten. He doesn't beg. He doesn't manipulate. He simply observes and decides. That clarity is felt. Women either rise to meet it or remove themselves. Both outcomes are wins. The final realization is simple but profound. Attraction is not something you force into existence. It emerges when emotional conditions are right. Those conditions are not created by tricks, money, looks, or bravado. They are created by a stable emotional baseline. When your baseline is stable, you don't rush, you don't overinvest, you don't chase validation. You don't pedestalize. You don't tolerate disrespect. You don't confuse anxiety with desire. You move slower. You speak cleaner. You choose more carefully. And women feel all of it before you say a word. That is why the man who can walk away is remembered. That is why the man who stays calm is respected. That is why the man who does not spike creates curiosity. Not because women changed, but because the pressure disappeared. That is the real advantage. Not a line, not a tactic, not a persona, a baseline. And once it's built, everything else becomes simpler.